I'm so incredibly excited to be talking to you right now because I saw this at Fantastic Fest in 2019, and
Oh
I've
yeah.
just been sitting on this gold mine for almost 3 years telling people about it. What has the experience been like for you sitting on this? Were your friends asking you about it? Are we going to finally see it? Like, what was that?
Yeah, I mean, we were really excited when it first came out and was making the rounds in Fantastic Fest and everything, and was super, super excited when people seemed to have a positive reaction to it. And yeah, I mean, the inner workings of it were complicated, and I'm not really privy to all that,
Sure.
but it was so incredibly exciting when it was like, oh my god, like it's coming out and it's making an appearance. And I know like me and Azure, who are still in contact, who played Marcella, were like, oh my god, like here's the trailer and everything. So it was incredibly exciting when we figured out that it was coming out.
So during that time, what sort of journey did you go on internally with all this film's emotional intelligence and that in the wisdom that comes from those shattering scenes with like Lindsay in the car and Marcella at the end and your mom, like those are like the three key conversations, well, along with Izzy as well, and they have such an impression on you as you're watching it. And I think that's the most surprising thing to me from this movie, is that going into it you may have a particular or a certain expectation as to like what may unfold because of its like quirkiness, but it's that emotional aspect that really takes a hold of you. And so during those 3 years, did it take a hold of you in any interesting ways?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the experience on the film was so important for me because it really felt like, I mean, like you're saying, you might expect one thing, it feels very um, potentially singular minded at the beginning of the film, like it's a caller, he needs to get kissed. It could potentially be some sort of, kind of the beginnings of a romantic comedy. And I remember when first reading the script, it was, the world was so great in that it was like this adaptation of a cult graphic novel. And but as it went along, as you're saying, with all of those conversations, it becomes way more than just about getting your first kiss, and even
Mm-hmm.
way more about, like relating to, even social awkwardness. It's about, like, how to relate to people, how to relate to your peers, how to relate to potentially romantic partners, your family, your friends, I mean, everyone. It was really, really important, at least for me, to kind of go through that journey as the character at that point, because, being 15 and similarly going through all of this social anxiety about growing up and how do I relate to my family, and how do I make people try to relate to me. It was extremely important and helpful for me in that sense, getting to vicariously live through this character and experience this sort of growth about how is the best way to kind of relate and talk, because
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, that's what the film is about. It's not one singular thing. It's about how we can try to get along with people.
Right.
And through, I mean, I know that I've taken those ideas throughout all of my life after Worm,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of trying to trying to be as good as I can, and to people, and try to make myself and others feel like they're not alone.
Sure. Yeah. Did you stew at all on one of the most interesting parallels to me watching the film is the one that's between Worm and Izzy, like how they view the world. Like Worm, he records everything. He experiences the world almost in a sonic kind of way, like sonically. And then Izzy, she takes her pictures, the Polaroids. And can you recall like those conversations that you may have had about that interesting parallel, or were there things that Chris wanted to kind of dangle out there without much explanation?
Yeah, I mean, there was so much inside of that relationship, and before we even began filming, I mean, we were talking with Chris and Lulu and trying to, figure out the nature of the relationships between these characters. And yes, entirely. I mean, there is this sort of relationship between the way that I record everything and that Izzy's taking pictures. And it even went beyond that where, when I try to pop the collar, I've got this sort of blue, almost birthmark that sort of mirrors her own birthmark over there. And, sort of setting up that there is this sort of kinship between us. And I think what happens at the end of the day that's so devastating is that you feel like they are, for a decent amount of the film, you feel like they are paired. That, it is, kind of sonic in sight. It is, kind of these marks that we've been marked. And sorry, my dog's in the background. But that, we've been, sort of similarly, we've been similarly paired. And then for that last scene to come and it's like, oh my God, like, she doesn't like me in that way. And it's so heartbreaking, that moment, because I know as WYRM, I was thinking, oh my God, like we paired in so many different ways and it just didn't work. So it was kind of confusing, but yeah, it was about setting up all those points and to figure out that we are maybe paired well, but not maybe romantically, that we just are two people who have similar ideas, and that doesn't equate to love or romantic ideas.
Well, my dog's just joined you. So has it caused you to view the world any differently? Is there a particular lens of your own that helps you see the world? Like, like he has his recorder and everything. Do you have anything that best helps you see the world?
Let's see. I mean, I think for me, it's I've been getting into writing, and I've been doing a lot of short stories and short films, and just that process of taking what I've seen and trying to make sense of it on paper has really been for me, like, I guess my sort of tape recorder, in the sense that I'm trying to sort of make sense of all the oddities and strangeness that's going on out in the world interpersonally, and kind of putting it into some sort of semblance of kind of 20-page story. It's like the synthesis of that is really quite important for me, in the sense that I'm trying to figure it out still.
Yeah This film is so much about understanding, and I think that's really what makes it such a special experience, in addition to a lot of those sight things that happen in the film, like you were talking about with the birthmark, and then the paint splatter, in some of those there's just like, you can pause the film. I really hope Chris does a commentary for this, because there's just so many things like throughout the film where you can be like, oh man, I didn't even notice that they were moving the mailboxes when the internet van came in, and then the shopping carts with crowding the vehicles. Did you know about like all those little sight gags, or did you have experienced them for some of them for the first time when watching the movie?
I mean, Chris was very, I think he just had it all thought out. And every now and then he would talk to us about, the set. I mean, especially like the big shop scene that you're talking about. He sort of, pictured it inside of the script. Like he kind of wrote it out that it's like, the beaches of Normandy for big shop, or something like that. And that the shopping carts are sort of piled up together in this sort of, I don't know, strange wreckage or something like that, that it's some sort of archaic battlefield or something like that. And I think reading in the script was sort of one thing where it's like, oh, that seems really cool. And then seeing it on set was really quite like spectacular, because I mean, the sets are so detailed. I mean, it really was just like, it was so easy getting into the world because it was all there. And the set design team was amazing, and the No Child Left Behind posters and those pamphlets were so in depth. I mean, I would palm through them before we would start filming, because I was just learning all the stuff about this world. and I know they did a couple of inserts on it, but it's just, it was so much was there, and it was like so much to do on set, and then seeing it synthesized on film was just like, wow, that's just like, I mean, it was all that information put into that one frame, which was just amazing.
Yeah, like, man, I loved it so much. Just even the way that Chris shot it, like, he didn't draw a lot of attention to things. They were just kind of there in the background, and it didn't have a polished look to it, like around your character's house. Like, there's just a wide shot of them at the table eating nachos and salad, and then you just see the couch with like the TV light on, which just informs so much about like how this family, you know, what their relationship is like, and like everything that's going on in the background with things just kind of stacked up, and looking at all your characters' dinosaurs that they have in the background. Please tell me you got to keep in something from that set, whether it was a dinosaur or your character's awesome t-shirts.
Yes, no, I got to keep one of the dino t-shirts. It was the dino t-shirt where it was, I think, a T-Rex in a spacesuit.
Yeah.
I got to keep the swim trunks, the dino swim trunks from the birthday scene.
Yeah.
Which they miraculously still fit me. So.
There you go.
Yeah.
What's your favorite dinosaur?
Oh God, we talked about this during the set. I'm trying to remember. I had, let's see. I mean, brontosauruses are pretty cool.
Yeah.
What's yours?
I think the first movie that I ever saw in theaters was Jurassic Park, the original. Yeah. So I just will always have a special place in my heart for the T-Rex, and I think I'll just always have a very strong relationship with that particular dinosaur.
Yeah.
But I did hint at some of the quirkiness and the particular tone and style of this film. Like, I right away, like, from the language of the characters, it's just like, it's so humorous how these characters like normalize certain words without cracking a smile. So was that tone tricky for you to navigate or wrap your head around? Was there any materials or big discussions that you had with Chris that kind of gave you like the best compass for you to be able to navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, it was just about, I mean, I think as I mentioned before, as like, as really like, great and cool as this world is in this sort of alternate reality, Chris was very, very adamant about keeping these characters real, and that, they are like, there is this sort of deadpan quality to everything, but they're speaking, what they are thinking, and they are trying to, be, honest in their own weird, way that doesn't quite, fit. I mean, you can see it a lot with Tommy's character Chet, like, it's like, oh, you can see Flora's picture. I mean, there's a lot of, weird stuff, but they, just trying to, communicate. I mean, it's that sort of awkward communication, that jagged communication,
mm-hmm.
and the sort of pitfalls of just trying to figure out exactly what you're trying to say. And it was, really easy for some of it, and some of it was quite, difficult in terms of what you're saying about not cracking a smile, because some of the dialogue is just flat out funny. I remember during the nacho scene, the first scene where we're really getting to see all the family together with Flora and Chet, Marcella and WYRM, and I had to do like this really like serious insult to Marcella about like her Oedipus, or no, Mad's Oedipus complex, and it was so difficult to do that without like just cracking up. I mean, me and Azure were just like laughing throughout that whole scene, and we wasted so much time because it was so hard to do that. Like, because they met, like, in that moment, like, as strange and weird as it is, like, he's really trying to hurt Marcella. And it's comical how silly, the how he's trying to kind of gut punch her. But you see him throughout the film trying to find like the right insults to really get him. And, I think that was sort of like a baby step. And then, to the point where, he goes like, that develops into you know, you're a bad daughter when since you're
Yeah.
not going to talk to mom. I think it's like that's when, you know, it's sort of like the power of that straightforward language comes out, and it maybe comes out with too much power than even Worm expected it to, because he's been bumbling along all the way through, and he actually said something that really pierced. And it was like, yeah, so there's also that danger of language.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Are nachos spoiled for you? Can you eat nachos?
they they are a little bit spoiled, but not for the reason, because they were so good on set. The nachos that they had were so amazing, and I ate so many nachos in the first wide shot because I was like, I never had nachos before, so I was like, oh my god, this stuff is great. And then I had to eat the same amount for every single close-up, and I started
Yeah.
getting, you know, like, oh my god, I shouldn't have eaten so much.
This is my friend, Worm.
Worm. Worm. Worm.
Worm.
Worm. Worm.
Did you try calling all the girls you know, see if they would do it for money or something?
Made it to Mallory Fletcher, and then I had to stop because I started getting really sad.